thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see you again.
Always good seeing you,
My
Bill.
old friend Joe McArdle.
So how have you been?
I'm doing good. I've been a reporter for 25 years. My first job in reporting full-time was in Phoenixville. The town embraced me. It was a 6-day-a-week paper, which is unique. It wasn't unique then, but it's unique now. It was a daily paper, and I was a rock star. I had a column. Phoenixville, we're going to talk about it a little bit for quite a bit, actually. But Phoenixville was going through a revitalization, and the paper had a lot to do with it.
I would say yes. In fact, you came in just at the time when things were just starting to happen. I remember the previous reporter was there, and things were just about to happen. Not everyone believed that Phoenixville was going to turn around.
No, Phoenixville was hurting. There was daytime crime, nighttime crime. I came in June of 2003. There was one beacon in the town. It was the Colonial Theater. It was lit up at night. Now there's national acts. I saw Rick Wakeman and Yes there. It's just it was a big town. It was a small town with big ideas, but a lot of people didn't believe it, and a lot of people had misgivings. And talk in 2003 was not big on revitalization, but it steamrolled, and a lot of things happened that led to that, and we're going to talk about that, obviously. So,
okay, well, why don't we get right into that? What do you think was some of the major things that happened that made the talk into reality?
Okay, one thing was the politicians got behind it. We had a thing where we had a bar in town called Dan's, and nobody got drunk, but everybody met, everybody that mattered. It was funny because they invited the reporter, because usually I didn't bring my pad or anything, but I wasn't writing anything down, but I listened pretty closely, and I asked a few questions, but they knew to trust me, and I heard a lot of stuff about off the record, and there wasn't a lot of argument on council in those days, and they'd get together and they'd talk and they discuss things, and it was a community spirit. Joe was at these. The chiropractor was there. I remember one time I had a stuffy nose, and he brought me into his office the next day gratis, and he fixed me all up, and everybody was there. And we talked, and we discussed, and we hatched things out, and we worked things out, and
what I would consider, we built consensus. We shared each other's point of view, and we worked on something common, the common good of the town.
Right, and it was fun, and there was this little egg, and the egg hatched, and it grew, and it grew into a monster, and now it's a great place to live, obviously, but work and play. We called it within. In between us, we called it within stumbling distance, where people move to the downtown, or within
staggering distance.
Staggering distance.
If you remember the first real new development, the closest to it was French Creek Townhomes.
Right, and
you covered that.
We covered that, and I can remember, a newspaper reporter in Phoenixville in those days worked 24 hours a day. If there was a fire or a townhome, a town meeting or something like that, I covered the suburbs, which are a major part of Phoenixville. East Pikeland, Schuylkill, Charlestown Township. They filter into the town. It's not just Phoenixville itself, but Phoenixville is a big part. Obviously, it's Phoenixville, but.
Well, Phoenixville, East Pikeland, and Schuylkill are all part of the same school district.
Right.
So you also covered the school district?
I covered the school district and all that and everything. But what would happen is, I can remember one night, Joe called me. He was frantic. And he said, there's people out here waiting. There's people out here with sleeping bags. There's people out here, they want to buy a house. And they're camping out. It was the great camp out. And people couldn't wait till the next morning. They were scared they weren't going to get a house if they waited till the next morning.
Now, honestly, when I first called you, did you actually believe me?
I did not believe you, and I said, "You're crazy, Joe. This is not real. People don't want to live in Phoenixville that bad, within staggering distance to the downtown." But it really was real, And I went out. One of our reporters, married to a cop, was out there, and she was. I don't know if she camped out, but did she camp out? She camped out. People wanted. They didn't just want a house. They wanted that house, and they wanted that house in a particular lot. They wanted different thought. They wanted different types and stuff like that. It was really fun, and it was really fun to see the enthusiasm. It was really fun to see people happy about living in Phoenixville. These were not just, some of them were newcomers, some of them were people that had lived in Phoenixville all their lives, but it was new blood, and it was people that really wanted to live in Phoenixville, and it was really fun. And obviously, we were there the next morning. By the next morning, it was a wild. It was a fracas. It was just dozens of people out there, and it was fun. It was great for Phoenixville, and it was just so exciting to see the new blood and Phoenixville growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, if you go into that, because when they first were there, when they were buying, there was no sample. There was nothing but a trailer.
It was a hole in the ground.
It was a hole in the ground. Yeah, and people so believed in Phoenixville's future, they were willing to buy based upon a hole in the ground.
Well, what's that old adage? Joe's a real estate agent, but it's location, location, location. It was the perfect location, and even then, we had this town, and you always hear that rising from the Phoenix and everything, and how many leads did I have to a story that it was rising from the Phoenix, from the ashes of the steel company, and the steel company had closed years before, and it was rising from the Phoenix, and people saw something that not everybody saw. There was a bad stereotype. My parents that lived in Westchester, they said it's a steel town, and it's not even a steel town anymore because of the steel. Coatesville still has the steel town, still has the steel plant, and people are employed, and they make a great grade of steel over there in Coatesville, another Chester County town, the only city in Chester County. But Coatesville had the steel, but Phoenixville didn't, and people saw something that Joe saw, and a lot of people didn't see. And they wanted it so bad that they camped out overnight, and they saw it before we saw it, and they saw it before I saw it, and I didn't believe it that people were going to stay overnight and do that. So it was really fun, and it was really an experience. And the houses went up quick, and they were nice houses, and from what I understand, Joe sent me something. They like tripled in value, right?
Oh yeah, the other thing. So let's get into that. So why do you think Phoenixville has had this huge revitalization? Going from a town 20, 25 years ago that was literally crime-ridden, even in the center of the town, to being what Travel and Leisure magazine has recently said is the #1 small town in America to live in. Well, why did Phoenixville go for that and other towns haven't?
Well, part of its location, you got Valley Forge National Park right on the edge there. We're close to Philadelphia, big sporting town. You got the... bars aren't everything, but the bars are fun to watch the Eagles game at, on a Sunday afternoon. They close down the street, which is a really fun thing when you do that. We've got they put wheels on beds and roll beds up and down the streets. We've got a Firebird Festival where they work for 6 months or 8 months a year, whatever, and they light this Phoenix on fire. They cook little things in the ground, little pottery in the ground, and tens of that. What, 10,000 people you think come out? I went to the first one.
More than 10. We were at the first one. Freezing cold, and difficulty lighting the thing, if you remember that. We all couldn't wait to go back inside to the bar because it was so cold out and so difficult to get things started. There could not have been more than 30 or 40 people there.
Well, it was a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Maybe a couple hundred. But the flames now are hundreds of feet high. People are dancing. But that's just one of the things. We've got Steel City Coffee House, which gets national acts, along with WXPN promotes that. That came in when I was here in 2003. I was here 2003 through 2006. Into 2006, we've got all that. There's so much going on.
The Blob Fest.
The Blob Fest. The Colonial Theater, for anybody that doesn't know, was the scene of part of the movie, and it is so cool because in the theater you can go up and you can see where the blob was this red little thing that, like this table here, that came through the vents of the theater and slid it out. And what they do is, it's so cool. The people, you can run out of the theater, and everybody's trucking out these costumes and everything, and it's called the Blobfest.
Reenactment.
And they do it for a weekend.
Yep, we do it for the reenactment.
It's a huge party.
Yep.
And they actually bring a piece of the blob, the original blob.
Yep. And what we do, because I was on the committee way back then, is we play the movie that was playing in the movie The Blob in the theater. At the time, we do the reenactment.
Steve McQueen's first movie.
Steve McQueen's third movie, third movie, first starring role.
Oh, well, I'm a reporter. I got it wrong. So, but I probably printed it wrong too. So, forgive me, folks.
No worries.
But it's a really fun weekend. There's all kinds of stuff like that.
The Christmas tree lighting.
Christmas tree lighting is fun, which is at the mural, which is another big deal.
The mural.
We have a mural that doesn't just show the town, but shows the people. It's right at Bridge Street. Barbara Cohen, hats off to her. We have a little museum for the steel site. There's just
Schuylkill River Heritage Museum.
Right
there at the Foundry Building.
And right at the Foundry Building, you can look into the Foundry, a big wedding venue, and big venue for events and stuff. It's a place, I think part of it is that you can get done on a Friday afternoon, and you can park your car, and you can just
turn your car off
and just
not turn it back on until Monday,
and have a good time with your kids and your family. And I think part of it is it's brought some new blood in, but also there's the locals that have been there for generations and generations. So
it's a good mix.
It's a good mix of people, and the suburbs have been infusing it too and bringing people in. So it's
the suburbs of Phoenixville.
Phoenixville, yeah. And we are close to Philly. There's 3 main highways that come through town. We're connected. We're connected to 422. It was rough in the beginning when they did the slip ramp because people didn't want that much access to the turnpike. But it is awful nice to have a slip ramp on the turnpike.
Route 29.
I drove right past it today. It's 13 minutes from the slip ramp from the turnpike, which gives us access to Pittsburgh and Northeast Extension and the whole deal. I just went up to the Northeast Extension on Monday. I mean, it's just so close. It's the perfect location. And I hate to be a salesman, but but it's just you're the salesman.
I'm the salesman.
It's a great place to live.
Yeah. How many times back then did you frown on me for being a salesman of it? Now look at the town.
So it's a fun. But the people. It's the people. For some reason, it attracted the right kind of people, and the right kind of people were here, and the people that really care. Phoenixville people really care. I mean.
You interviewed a lot of the people. You interviewed a lot of the new residents. You interviewed them, and you found out their stories, and they all had stories to tell as to why they came there.
Right, and people like living here. People like the whole atmosphere, and people like to be able to go down and buy an ice cream cone, or be able to sit in a restaurant and eat dinner. I mean, there is some really good good restaurants that you can sit down and they don't mind if you spend an hour and a half sitting there and enjoy, and they don't mind that, and it's
but
just
people like to be able to go there and then to be able to walk back home.
Yes, exactly, and that's a big advantage. That's a nice thing to be able to do that, and even if you live a little bit farther out, it's not a big deal. It's only a couple minutes in. So.
Right, and even like you were saying earlier, the bicycle policeman actually lives there, moved into town.
Bicycle policeman and his reporter wife.
Yes,
who I worked with. Yeah.
Yes, and everyone knows them. So when the people are walking down to go and have something to eat or something. He knows them. They know him. They feel safe in the town.
Oh, and the police are nice people too. They're not, you always get that, you think the cops are meanies and everything, but the police are good people. So
they're their neighbors.
They're their neighbors. Yep. So
yeah.
And we've got a new city hall in the last 15, 20 years, which has got plenty of parking, and that's right in the beginning of town there. And they
had come to me at one of those off-council meetings that asked me my opinion because they had the property and from the 60s, and they were deciding whether or not to knock it down and rebuild it where it was or what else they should do. And I had said to them, if you wanted to see a revitalization, you need to be the cause in the matter. If you put the city hall down on the central business district, that'll encourage more development along the central business district. And after several meetings, they came to the same conclusion that where the city hall had been was essentially a side street. If you remember it,
Right. It was in the, and there wasn't much parking.
it wasn't much parking. It was in the middle of a residential area, and it made more sense to put it in the central business district and encourage more development along that central business district.
Joe and the community, the real estate community, we're sitting in the real estate office right now, but promoted themselves pretty well. In the newspaper business at Christmas time, a lot of people take off, and we get into the eggnog a little bit, and we have fun. And
What's in that eggnog?
Just eggnog. It's just eggnog. It's eggs and nog, right? But
No brandy?
no. But it's a little slow time for the year, and so what we do is a month in advance or 3 weeks in advance, we write articles that can go on the front page of the paper, and they're big long articles, and we write them in advance so that when somebody's off, I for the paper I wrote 2 articles a day, which is a lot. And if I don't write an article, there's a hole in the paper. I mean, there's a big black mark. Not really, but But so what I did was we went one year. I wrote about the revitalization of Phoenixville, and it was in its infancy. And I interviewed. I remember it was 19 or 20 people, and I wrote all the movers and shakers. I just interviewed the people with
Barbara Cohen,
Iron Hill, Barbara Cohen. Everybody. I mean, everybody that was in Joe. I mean, everybody that was involved. Not everybody, but a lot of people that were involved, and we got a real feel for it, and it had never been fleshed out before. And what we did was we really got it going, and we got a good handle on it, and we saw that it really had been a lot of work. Those meetings at Dan's, the bar, on Wednesday nights had really done a lot of work, and council had really paved the way. I mean, when things came up, they settled them and they worked them out, and there was fixes and stuff like that. So what Joe did was, this was 22 years ago, 23 years ago. What Joe did was, this was the beginning of the internet, and people just had begun to get websites and emails and all that kind of stuff and everything. He took all these articles. It was 5 days worth of articles. Now they were all 1,500 words a piece, and I took pictures of people, and I took pictures of the Foundry. The Foundry building, which is the big building where the steel was made, was still broken windows, and we were working on it.
We're working on bringing in entertainment. I originally started. I helped put together a bid to put pulsations there. We lost out. Later on, our idea was to put the pulsations there and put some auxiliary bars and restaurants similar to what Main Street is in Manayunk and similar to what Delaware Avenue, Columbus Boulevard was, and then put residential housing around it. And that, I think, is what pretty much took over now, as you see, looking back 25 years later or whatnot, 35 years later from when we put the bid in. That's what pretty much happened to the town.
And people love the Foundry because it was a symbol of the steel site. The Foundry and the Superintendent's Building are still left, and now there's houses, and people love to live on that property.
Foundry is actually where they melted the steel. That's why they call it the Foundry Building, and it's an icon to the town. And I believe as the steel site goes, so goes the town.
And there's a beautiful little museum there that we talked about earlier that you can go in and find out about it. There's one of the cranes is still there, a wooden crane, and it's beautiful. So anyway, we digress, and we need to talk about the Foundry a little bit. But so anyway, what Joe did was he took these 5 articles with the pictures and everything, and he emailed them to 500 or 600 real estate agents in the whole Delaware Valley, and we got a buzz going. And for years, real estate agents came up to me. I met a lot of people, and I talked to a lot of people as a reporter. People said, "Oh, I read those articles about Phoenixville," and then they started looking at the MLS books, and they started looking at tell them what an MLS book is.
Multiple listing service. Okay, and back in the old days, there were books. Then it was computerized, and as you're saying, once we got the buzz within the real estate community, and once the realtors actually believed that there was something going on in Phoenixville, and they started to believe it from the camp out and from stories about the camp out and from stories about the revitalization and from stories about what was going on at the Colonial Theater, what was going on at Steel City, and the stuff we were working on at the Foundry, putting that together, as well as other bars and restaurants as each one came in, as Iron Hill Brewery came in, as Molly McGuire's came in. You wrote about them.
Right. So, and so there was this huge buzz in the area with real estate agents all the way down to Delaware, into Philly, everywhere. And people were talking about it, not just in Phoenix anymore. And that was and people were writing about it in other papers and stuff and everything. And then it attracted the attention of people like Iron Hill Brewery. And Iron Hill Brewery, I'm from Westchester, and Westchester had their main intersection the main intersection, it was 4 corners. They were all vacant. And when Iron Hill came in, it changed Westchester.
Yep, it took over the old Woolworths because at the time there was 4 corners and they were all vacant. And Iron Hill had believed that by going in, they could help the revitalization of Westchester.
And they wanted to do that.
Yeah,
they wanted to do that.
That was their concept. The same thing in the same thing in Phoenixville.
I talked to those guys for that article, and they wanted to do that in Phoenixville. And darn it if they didn't do it here. And that helped. And it's a beautiful place. And they built original construction. It was one of the few ones that
the first new construction. It was a 6 location, their first new construction. And literally I marketed the condos above that. And they camped out actually for 2 nights on that one. And that was the second camp out we had in Phoenixville.
Right, and it's yummy food too. So, but Iron Hill was part of the revitalization, and it just made a big difference. And that was it. That was a thing where outsiders that weren't from Phoenixville had faith in Phoenixville. And it was another thing where they said, "Oh, this is a happening place. This is where it's growing and it's coming on." So that was kind of cool. So that worked out too, didn't it?
Yeah, and also next door, the Cashmans had purchased the Columbia. You interviewed them too.
Old historic property,
yep.
A beautiful hotel, and they've got a nice place in there, and down the street, the whole thing it just evolved. It just all, the synergy, it just all came together. And I don't know, and just that whole Wednesday night thing, or if it was the politicians got together, it just all seemed to work. And all the people coming in, it just happened. And it worked. And the paper was involved.
And your articles helped.
Yeah, the articles helped. But, I mean, we were always beating the revitalization thing too, because it was happening. And you could see
it was actually news. It was real news. It was actually happening. Yeah. You could really see people camping out there. You could really see new restaurants going in.
And we were bringing in the national acts to Steel City.
Yep.
The big guys, even though it was only a couple hundred seats, people that were national musicians wanted to be here and play here.
And even in the Colonial Theater.
Colonial Theater, yeah.
National acts there.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a 500-600 seat theater, and I can remember the first, and I didn't know this, but they have, it's a beautiful theater, and they've added to it. They took my old office at the newspaper, which is an old bank,
yep.
And it probably still smells of newsprint. But they took it and they built these beautiful theaters in there. But I remember the first time I was at the Colonial Theater that they had somebody rise out of the stage playing an organ or a piano or whatever, and just rose out of the stage. I was just shocked at that. That's how old it is, and it's a beautiful theater, and they've redone the seats. And
I think it actually goes back to vaudeville days.
It does. It goes back to vaudeville. So I could be making that up again too, because that's what we do in the news business. But
no, it actually does go back to.
Yes, it does.
No, it actually goes back to.
But it just there's so many little nooks and crannies that the neighborhoods are beautiful. Not just the houses that you built, but the neighborhoods are pretty. It's a nice walking town. It's just a beautiful place to be. So, and the attitude, people are friendly.
Yeah.
I had such a fun time today. I went out of my way a little bit on the way from Westchester, my home, and I drove through Phoenixville and there was just so much action. There was just so much, you could feel the energy.
Yeah, I bet you if you had stopped and walked one block, people would remember you and say hello.
Well, we have a Carnegie Library.
Yeah.
The original
Carnegie and Dow Library, right there,
and it's
next
beautiful.
to Reeves Park.
It's beautiful. And Reeves Park is beautiful. The festival. The
Dogwood Festival.
The Dogwood Festival. How could you forget that? One year we had a new editor. The first day of the Dogwood Festival, she didn't report on it. No pictures in the paper the next day.
Okay.
Oh boy, there was trouble. There was trouble because you get thousands of people out there for that. So
yeah.
the second day we overdid it. So
good for you.
But the Dogwood Festival is just incredible and it's so much fun. There's a Dogwood Queen and the whole thing.
The whole court, the whole court, and the whole voting and everything on that.
Oh, and look, and there's beautiful trails outside of town. You can the Schuylkill River
and the
runs.
canal. Don't forget the canal.
I was going to say,
canal
you can rent.
still there.
Is it still Fitzwater Station?
Fitzwater Station.
Fitzwater Station. For a couple bucks, you can rent a kayak.
Go up the canal.
Up the canal. You can portage a couple 100 feet, carry your kayak, and go down the Schuylkill River. Do it in 2-3 hours, or take your time. And it's so much fun. Or you can, if you have your own kayak, you can do that. It's so much fun. Just so many people had so much to do with it, and it just all came together, Joe. So,
yeah. So, how many times did I make above the fold?
You made above the fold. Above the fold. Above the fold. Joe McArdle, yes, above the fold McArdle. So. We reported on Joe a little bit. Joseph.
No, I was involved in a lot of things. I
Yes,
still
you
am.
were.
But it's important to become involved to make things happen. It's important to become involved in the community.
Right, and you did your job, and you helped.
I marketed the ones above the condominiums above Iron Hill and the condominiums on the other side of Columbia.
Right, and there was a lot of people involved. So.
Anything else you need to say?
I think we're good. I'm looking at my list. I think we got everything going here. We're good. It's a great town. I try to get back every month. My favorite place to eat.
Where?
Wasco's.
Okay.
They've got something called the Zap.
Yep.
It's kind of like a hoagie, but there's no lettuce. It's extra oil, and you got to try it. It's an extra sharp cheese.
Jimmy Wasco.
Jimmy Wasco, and they've got something on there. They've got a pork sandwich with sharp cheese too, which is just incredible. It beats the ones in Philly. Both of them are better. So, but Wasco's is pretty good. There's a lot of places to eat in town, and I do some eating. So.
Yeah, what was the Mexican place we used to go to? The authentic one. You remember that one?
I forget the name of that. I haven't been by there in a couple years. So
okay, you're not going there without me.
No, we'll get there. So, and we, God bless.
Oh, and you forgot. The after hours.
Yes, the after hours. The Val Rio. After Dan's.
After the consensus building would go to the Val Rio.
Yes. The Val Rio, which is gone, but it was a real diner with rivets, and we used to sit in the corner booth with the glass around it, and
our booth.
Our booth, yes.
We used to have the same waitress each time.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. She'd be there at 1:30 in the morning and open 24 hours like a real diner. And so Phoenixville has a lot of memories for me. And
what type of diner was it? What was the diner?
It was a pink diner, Joe.
Okay, but who was the manufacturer?
I don't remember that.
We used to go around to diners and check off the manufacturers.
I eat at a diner every day in Westchester now. So
okay.
For lunch, I had lunch there today, actually breakfast. So, but it's a great town, and I love it. And I come back. They treated me like a rock star, and the paper had a lot to do with it, and you had a lot to do with it, and it was it's a fun place. So thank you for inviting me over.
Oh yeah,
to do this.
Thank you.